really, really hard to watch, and I'm sure a lot of people did. I'm just trying to like breathe my way through this a little bit. Both the first films are really hard. I think there's something about the way that, you know, obviously those bodies are so sexualized, the way that, you know, I mean, we see just a white woman's naked body pretty much through that whole film. And the way that women's bodies are used as props, whether they're dead or alive, you know, there's all these questions that come out of that, like, were there no brown women in that film? Because, you know, obviously she's telling a story of her own, but it made me think, you know, is it because, are there not even brown women in the film dead, like, let alone alive? Like, you know, there's so many things that came out of it. But I think there's a film, I don't know if people are familiar with, an Australian film called Gendervine, and it really reminded me of that film. So does anyone know what I'm talking about when I talk about a film called Gendervine? Some people. So just really briefly, it's a film, the premise of the film is around a young Aboriginal woman's body is found by three men who go fishing, three white men who go fishing. And they stay fishing, they keep her body tied up and keep fishing, they have their holiday. And then they go back and report. And the whole film is about the impact that this death of this woman has had, and the way that those men kind of continued some violence on her by sitting there. And that film really made me think of that, and about how violence is depicted in film, and who it's for, who is it for, who's watching, why is it made in a way that is sexualized? You know, are we, like, you feel so dirty watching that film. Like, you feel like you want to have a wash. It feels like, yeah, there's something that's not right about that. And I think for me, the way that violence is often depicted, and, you know, it's so graphic, and actually it doesn't tell the story of the impact. And that's actually the thing that we need to tell, and that's the story that women want to tell, and that's, you know, but there's some kind of way of skewing it all into this physical manifestation of violence, and how much that actually gives us. I don't know. So that's some initial thoughts.
Thanks, Camille. Thank you. That's actually really helpful, and leads directly into the question I've got for you, Mariana, which is, so we had Faith telling her story, and how important is it do you think, as somebody who works specifically around sexual violence, for survivors to be able to provide their own narrative, including on film?
I think it's incredibly important. Too often, women are silenced and marginalised and invisibilised, and women are silenced and marginalised and invisibilised in different ways. As Camille was talking about, that the depiction of women in the film, and it's a depiction of a certain kind of woman. It's the white, slim woman. That's who we see on our films and on our TVs. And too often that's what is done to violence against women. It can become this abstract thing that is consumed for entertainment. And whether we choose to actively or not, often we are consuming. And that's one of the most uncomfortable things for me about watching that film, is that I'm pretty sure I've seen some of those programs. So I, as an activist around violence against women, am also a consumer of violence against women, and that's really difficult, and that is what it is. And so to have Faith telling her story, is incredibly important and powerful, because that is the reality of violence against women. And just to say a couple of things about that that struck me throughout the film. Firstly, that Faith is not that woman out there telling her story. She is the woman in here telling her story. She's the woman that we know at home telling her story. She's the woman that we see at work telling her story. She is a survivor telling her story. And not every woman is the same, and not every survivor's experience is the same. So it's a very personal story, and it's incredibly brave of her to let us be on that, be involved in that when the telling of her story. The other thing that really struck me was that there was one point in the film where she was speaking about the rape culture, where I thought she could have been speaking about what happened to her, when she said, if you don't believe that the rape culture exists, turn on your TV, watch a film, watch how violence against women is shown on the films. It's almost like she'd been watching the first film with us. And so I think that for me is also why it's incredibly important to have a survivor's voice. Like Camille, I was breathing my way through a lot of that. And I think it's really important. I think one point where I was speaking at something years ago and almost apologised for almost becoming emotional or showing how emotional I was. And I'll never do that, because it's absolutely right, and it's really important that we never lose how wrong this is. I don't want to have to do this work. I want to be unemployable. I don't want to watch these films. I want these films never to need to be made. I don't want another survivor to have to tell their story. So yes, we live in a rape culture, and that's why that's important. And it's really important that we know that she's not that woman out there. She's absolutely a woman in here.
Thank you. Thanks to the three of you.